And back at the 41 acres, unnamed 41 acre property along the Mohawk River in the town of Clifton Park. Going to see what ephemeral spring wildflowers we can find and any other spring season wildflowers. And what we have here are some Solomon seals that have emerged. Of course, they're not putting on the flower buds yet. But how you distinguish between the couple of species that are very similar to one another. So you need to look at the underside of the leaf. And if you can get a close-up look, you can see that there's really no fine hairs on it. So this would be smooth Solomon seal. And of course, one that would show a few hairs at the underside of the leaf would be known as hairy Solomon seal. And we're greeted here by the long-spurred violet. Gets its name from the spur at the backside of the bloom. It's quite lengthy. Beautiful little spring wildflower. A couple more over here. You can see the spur very distinctive there. That's the easiest way to show or identify these species of violets. Long-spurred violet. And another species of violet we see here, a little darker blue, purplish type petals. But the leaves are a little bit more distinctive from the other ones we saw. But again, no spur at the back. This is common blue violet. Probably the most common of all the violets. Common blue violet. And here we have one of our spring season wildflowers. It's not an ephemeral spring wildflower. It's the smallest blooming of all the buttercups. This is called small flower crowfoot. You can see the very tiny yellow flower it has, 5 petals. But what I wanted to show you, what makes small flowered crowfoot so distinctive in addition to the tiny flower, is that's the only crowfoot buttercup that has 3 different types of leaves on each of the separate plants. You can see these large paddle-like leaves at the base, the basal leaves. Then we come up higher up on the plant and we'll see some lobed leaves here, kind of in the middle portion. And at the very top you see these very fine narrow leaves, really lance-like. And that's distinctive about this species of buttercup, small flowered crowfoot. And if you can make it out right on that dead tree, right in kind of the center of the frame, there is a red-bellied woodpecker. He's calling now, calling to his mate elsewhere in the woods off to my left. I'm not sure if this is the den tree. He seems to be putting his head in a hole. He might have some young ones in there. That's you can hear the call hopefully distinctly. That is the red-bellied woodpecker. And our resident great blue heron is right in the center of the frame. If you look at the edge of the pond and that tree trunk at the other shoreline, that's where the great blue heron is sitting on a log right now, probably watching for fish and frogs. And we've made our way back to that little mini forest of May apples that we saw in our last visit that were really, the leaves are just unfurling. You can see that many of them are fully open now. And here you can more clearly see the distinction between each of the 2 different years of growth of the plant. It's a biennial plant, it's a 2-year plant. And then this frame that you're looking at right now on the right is a 1-leaf plant, that's year 1. And on the left is, you can see it has 2 leaves that are still unfurling. And then in the middle of it is the flower bud. That will have a very big white flower, 5 petals, probably another couple weeks. And then by mid-August it will have a kind of a cherry tomato sized or oversized grape sized fruit, which is very aromatic. It's delicious. You want to wait, like all fruit, let it ripen on the plant and wait until it has a translucent yellow skin. But it has a very distinctive and really kind of exotic fruit flavor. And we have some more of our Carolina Spring Beauty. These are definitely getting past peak blooming time. A lot of these plants are at this property. Really one of the best places to come see them at this property. Carolina Spring Beauty, one of our ephemeral spring wildflowers. This is one of the last of the cut-leaved toothwort that I've found. You can see it's really some of the last flowers are in bloom. It's already have about 3 or 4 seed pods setting. This is another of our ephemeral spring wildflowers, and it's really past prime. In fact, they're just about done blooming. Cut-leaved toothwort. Well, I wanted to show you a couple of better examples of the cut-leaved toothwort still in bloom, and hopefully it'll focus in for you. These are really some late bloomers here of this species. Almost all the ones I see elsewhere throughout the property, and there are quite a few here, are already done blooming. Cut-leaf toothwort, another of our ephemeral spring wildflowers, and probably if you were to come back in a month, walk through the same area, you would find no evidence whatsoever of the plant. It will have withered away. This is probably the most common of all of our ephemeral spring wildflowers. It's the trout lily, which as you can see has its bloom hanging down, kind of a nodding appearance, but just a beautiful 6-petal yellow flower. And if you take a close look at the leaves, you see the brown patches, the mottling, the dots on them, as they're called. This plant, again, is an ephemeral spring wildflower, one of our most common of all of them. But again, I wanted to show you all the leaves that are around here. And this cluster over here, it's actually quite thick. Really almost everything you're looking at are trout lily leaves. As an ephemeral spring wildflower, by first week of June, you come back, walk through here, you'll find, again, no evidence whatsoever of trout lily. They will have completely gone to seed and withered away and stored all their energy in their root so they can come up again this time next year. Yellow trout lily. And also out today enjoying the sunshine are about a half a dozen turtles over on a couple of logs on the far side of the pond. And you can see a fern emerging here from a clump, really a corm, and each of these fronds are just unfurling right now. And how you can tell this one is really one of our most common woodland ferns is by taking a look at the individual leaflets. And if you can see the one that's directly over my finger, centered over my finger, at the top of that leaf, looking up this way, at the top, I guess, of the leaf, near the top of the frame of the video, is a little thumb on that little leaflet, and that's what distinguishes this as Christmas fern. And these are the ferns you'll see that are remaining bright green even as the snow cover is piling up around them. And in a thaw, sometimes you'll see them get re-exposed within the snow itself. Also, we have one of our kind of our later spring wildflowers. This one's just emerging, and if you can look very closely, of course it doesn't even have flower buzz on it just yet, but if you look very closely, hopefully this will show up. You can see some very fine hairs along its stem, and they catch if it would hit fabric, and that's where it gets its name of catchweed bedstraw. And those fine hairs are actually made out of silica. And why it has the common name of bedstraw is that colonists use this to actually stuff mattresses. Catchweed bedstraw will have a very tiny 4-petal white flower in about another month. And here's a little bit better look at the turtles sunning themselves now on the far side of the pond. I think just the last two, they're still on the log, very warily watching me. Well, I'm hoping you can hear the very sharp one-note call of the osprey. It's been sitting here on a tree along the edge, calling out. And here he comes flying over the pond. And there it is. That's the osprey. That was that really sharp high note earlier. And if you can hear the constant chirping, very rapid chirping, that is actually a pair of belted kingfishers who are also here. They've been very busy. And now you can hear the other call of a red-tailed hawk. And you might, there it is in the center, circling up above. It's a busy day with birds here. Another wildflower that's emerged here since our last visit. This is a naturalized one, a very fragrant white bell-shaped flower. This is lily of the valley, has a wonderful perfume, but this is not a native plant, it's a introduced one. This is lily of the valley, be blooming probably in another week to 10 days. Another of our spring season wildflowers is early meadow rue. I'll try and get you to take a look at the leaf shape, very distinctive. All the many little broad teeth, rounded teeth to each leaflet. And then what's really interesting is taking a look at the flowers. And these are almost look like kind of 1920s vintage lampshades. If I can get these into focus for you. Don't know if I'll be able to do that or not. But they have the four sepals would be kind of the shade. And then you can see the stamens and anthers hanging down. Anyway, this is early meadow rue. Wants to focus on anything but the plant. Early meadow rue, one of our early season spring wildflowers. And our last plant for today, one of our woodland wildflowers, be blooming in about another month or so. This one is Sweet Cicely. It's very closely related to anise root. Both of them have kind of an anise scent to them, and a flavoring if you were to nibble on the young seed pod. But if you take a close look, you can see all the hairiness, the downiness of the plant stem. That's what really sets it apart from anise root, which is smooth or nearly hairless. Sweet Cicely is always quite downy and fuzzy like this. Anyway, it'll have a very tiny little white flower later on, and then as those are germinated, they'll have a little green seed pod, which is a little bit elongated and are a fun trailside nibble. This is Sweet Cicely.